Hey, Mr. Miyagi-Style. It is Monday. Happy Monday, everybody. We got a lot of rain here. It's been raining like crazy here. So, as I promised, I'm going to be doing a segment on 3D printing. So I'm just going to be talking mostly in this one, just kind of an intro to people who want to get into 3D printing. There's quite a bit involved, and that's something that people need to know. It's not really as simple. I thought, like me, I got into it a few years back when the pandemic hit, and I got laid off of my job, so I needed to do something with my hands. I'm very fidgety with my hands, right? So I've always been interested in the technology with 3D printing. So I ended up getting the 3D printer. I bought one cheap off Amazon. And you know what? I thought, oh yeah, it's gonna be awesome. I'm just gonna download these files and print it out. Well, to my surprise, it's not that easy. I'm gonna explain a few things to you guys, and I want you guys to be prepared if you want to get into this hobby. It's a great hobby if you get into it and you can do the stuff that I'm able to achieve. And some of the experts, I don't consider myself an expert. I would say I'm probably intermediate. It took me probably about 3 years to teach myself. A lot of reading, a lot of watching videos, a lot of tinkering, trial and error. I'm at the point where I'm comfortable with repairing my own machines, troubleshooting if there's a problem with the actual printer itself. I know exactly what the problem is. That took me a while to do because when I first started, it took like, I'm like, if this didn't print out right, I'm like, back on YouTube video to watch and try to troubleshoot and find out what the dissect the problem and see what it was. So I'm gonna hopefully help you guys who wants to get into to 3D printing. For you experts out there, that 3D printers, you can just skip this video. You know, this you guys have been through all this before. And for the people who are not interested, hey, just hit next and go to something else. I'm not gonna do any reviews. I'm not gonna do any cameras. I'm just gonna yap for a couple minutes with what's the current situation with Insta360. You guys have already seen what's been going on with the two alleged people who have kind of blown the whistle and made some accusations about the company for telling them not to disclose sponsorship. Guys, don't believe everything that you see on YouTube. There's always two sides to the story, and just use some critical thinking and just do some dissecting, do some digging, and find out if this is a real issue. So far, I'm in disbelief, just because I have some sources that I'm depending on, which are accurate, and I'm not going to tell you guys. But it makes me ill to see some of these other career content creators jump on the bandwagon and start making videos on boycotting or hate or against the company kind of stuff. And that really bothers me because, you know, I've been kind of looking at all these videos and a lot of content creators who are trying to put out honest reviews of Insta360 products that they've bought, they put out with their own money. It wasn't given to them, that kind of thing. And they're afraid, because I've talked to a few, and they're afraid because they don't want to get flamed on YouTube, which is sad. And if you jump on any of the Insta360 reviews now and you read some of the comments, it really makes me sick, guys. The idiots and the morons that are on there making comments like, oh, is this sponsored? Oh, are you sure this is not sponsored? You know, guys, you guys are a bunch of idiots for saying stuff like that. There are people that are trying to help other people make decisions, and you jump on and you're going to be an a-hole about this. Like, get a life. Go find something else to do. Go play on TikTok or something. Okay, guys? I'm tired of idiots like that. And I don't care if you do it on my channel, but there are some people who are trying to put out honest reviews, and they're afraid to now because of idiots like you jumping on their channel and saying things like that on their comments. Don't believe me, guys. Just go and read some of the comments for the new Insta360 content that's out there. All these idiots, and it's usually the same handful of people, you know. And I'm guessing they're just trolling assholes, right? They're just going around making, hey, get a life, guys. You know, like, get bent on your own time. You come on my channel and you can chirp at me. Let's have a little fun, okay? So I bet you won't, because you're too chicken shit to do it. Anyways, that's my rant. For the content creators out there who are going to do Insta360 stuff, please continue to do it. Ignore these idiot assholes. You know, do an honest review. You know, if you're given something, a product to test, just disclose it. You know, just tell it. It's not a big deal. I do it too. I've been given accessories by Insta360. I'll disclose it. I'll say, hey, this was given to me, or I bought it, or whatever. It's not a big deal. And if they want to believe you, great. If they don't want to believe you, great. Who cares? You know what? You do this for the other people. You try to help the other people. That's what I do. Okay, I'm just sharing my experiences, and you can do whatever you want with that. Okay, take it how you like it. If you don't want to use it, that's fine. If you can use it, great. That means I've helped. Maybe I saved you some money. But that's my 5-minute rant about that. Back to the 3D printing. So I hope this is not going to be, I don't want to make this too long because it's just me talking. You're going to see on here, there's 2 different types of printers that you're going to be dealing with. Okay, these are the 2 printers that are most popular in residential. Okay, we're not talking about commercial stuff. They use completely different stuff, more high-end, more intricate, more complex machines. The ones that you can find on eBay or on Amazon, these are designed for residential and maybe small businesses. I bought one, and they're not expensive. 3D printers have come down in price quite a bit since I first looked at them, which was probably, I would say, gosh, 6-7 years ago. I got into this about 3.5-4 years ago, right when the pandemic hit. And it took me a good year to get used to the machines, to able to get good prints out on the machine. The 2 machines that you're going to be dealing with, and you need to know, because this segment is going to be just the basics of what machine you're probably going to end up buying. Okay, there are 2 separate machines, 2 very different machines. And you need to realize what you're going to be doing with your 3D prints. What are you going to be printing? That will determine which printer you're going to buy. And it's a very easy decision. And I'll explain to you very briefly. I'm not going to get into too much tech in terms of 3D printers, because I know a lot of people will just fly over your heads. And you won't understand what I'm saying. So I'll try to do it in layman terms for you guys. So I've got this on 2 cameras. I've got this on the Ace Pro shooting me directly, and I've got it on my X4 on the left-hand side. So I'm going to kind of pan back and forth the cameras on the final video for you guys, just so you guys can see. It'd be kind of neat to get different viewpoints with the X4, and that's why I bought the X4 for, to be able to frame my angle with that camera. So first and foremost, the 2 different types of printers that we're going to get into right now. And you need to know this because it's going to determine which one you're going to buy. And there are very, very significant differences between the 2. Okay. There's what we call a resin printer, and then there's one that's called a FDM printer. Okay, I use an FDM. Okay, if you want to know what an FDM stands for, I don't know. I have to look it up. I think it's fused deposition modeling. Okay, that's what FDM stands for. What does that mean? Nothing. It's just a technique used to print the object. Okay, and I'm going to give it to you in layman terms. An FDM printer works with solid plastic, PLA. This is the most popular brand or type of plastic we use, which is PLA. There are different types of plastic as well, and I'll go through those as we get into further into the to 3D printing. I don't think I'll do it in this segment. I just want to give you the basics of the printer, and then you can decide what you want to do. And just wait for the next segment, which I'll give you a little bit more information. Now, the FDM printers are uses. You've seen these. It's basically by a spool of plastic, and it's 1.75 millimeters width. On it looks like a big thick thread, and it's just wound up in a spool. And it's hard plastic, but it's flexible enough, right? That it's not stiff. So what you do is you actually feed that into an extruder, and it goes into a heating element, like a heating print head. Okay, and it goes in there and it melts as it's actually printing. I think somebody used the analogy of it's like a glue gun. Okay, so how a glue gun works, right? You put the glue in, you melt it, and then you just do your spreading around and that kind of thing and make the glue. This is very similar technology with FDM. So what it does is you start from the base up, and you print line at a time, and it goes around the object, keeps going around, and it does supports on the inside. And we'll get into supports a little bit further down the segment here. So it basically does line at a time and goes up until it finishes the object, right? No matter how tall or wide it is, right? So that's how an FDM printer works. And then you have the resin printer. Okay, so what the resin printer, I'm going to tell the difference how the print method of these two are, and I'll explain why one is different the other, what you should choose for your use. The resin printer is basically printed from liquid plastic. So how a resin printer works is you pour liquid plastic into a vat. It's like a little tub platform, and it can be different sizes depending on the type of printer. Same with FDMs, because FDM the bed is different sizes, right? The bigger the bed, the bigger the prints that you can print. With a resin printer, what it does is there's a platform that lowers down to the bottom of that vat full of the liquid, and as it's rising that platform, it's using UV light to cure that liquid plastic. So as it's lifting, it's actually printing layer at a time by using light source to harden or cure that liquid plastic. So when you pick it up, it comes up, and you'll see this object forming on that platform. And when it's done, it's upside down. And then you just rip it apart, take out all the supports, and you have your project, or you have your 3D print. So that's how resin printer works, right? So just remember, FDM is the most popular, and it uses hard plastic coils to print. Resin printer is more expensive, and we'll get into that in a second. And it uses liquid plastic by using UV light to actually create layers at a time and print that way. So it's not really printing; it's curing layers at a time using light. Okay. FDM is more economical. What I mean by that is plastic is cheaper. Disposable plastic is cheaper for FDM printers. There's the machines are actually cheaper to buy. You can get a typical FDM printer can start at about $100 US and go up to $2,000 US. It depends on the type of print. Just like anything, it's like a car. You can buy cheap cars for a cheap price and go up, and it's just features, size, quality of print, that kind of thing, and bells and whistles, right? That's the difference between the and bigger platforms, so you can buy bigger printers. Okay, you can also buy the more expensive one. You'll see what they call an enclosed FDM printer. What that basically means is it's in a box, and you open the door. It's like an oven, right? And then it's printed on the inside, so it's enclosed in the box, and you can see like a glass window all the way around. The reason for that is because when you print, it's heated and it's cooled, correct? When you're printing FDM, depending on what material, plastic you're using, the temperature of air that surrounds that print can greatly affect the print itself, and it can affect sizing, expansion, and shrinkage. Okay, you want the least amount of shrinkage or expansion while you're printing. The reason why is because if you've got something down and you're measured down to the millimeter or half a millimeter, and it has to fit perfectly, that expansion and shrinkage, because of that surrounding air, could cause that very accurate measurement to be out. So that's why you have an enclosed printer. It keeps that temperature the same inside that enclosure, so you don't have a variance of temperature changing the structural integrity of your print. Okay, that's the best way I can explain it, right? There's a lot more to it, but that's the best way to kind of explain it in a layman term. So you'll see people that I don't do that much accurate stuff for me to use a closed printer, and they're more expensive too, right? They're usually about 2 to 3 times more expensive because of that enclosure, and they don't tend to be very big because of that enclosure, right? Because your printer is relatively large. If you have that enclosure, it's like a big box, right? And it also keeps, and one thing you have to remember with any 3D printer is that you're melting plastic. So there are fumes, okay, involved. Whether it's resin or it's FDM printer, you're melting plastic. There are what they call, there's a abbreviation, VOT, I think that's what it's called. There are invisible fumes that actually is bad for you over a course of time. So with any printer that you use, whether it's resin especially, with even FDM, you should have good ventilation, or in a big room where there's windows and that kind of thing. So if you're printing, always have a fan blowing, the air circulating, a window nearby. My 2 machines is right below a window, so I tend to open the window up and just kind of air out the when I'm printing. It's not too bad for an FDM. You still get a bit of it, but it's not. You have, and you can wear masks as well if you want. You can wear the those factory mask, the painter's mask, and they will help filter that fumes as well. The resin printer is actually worse because you're dealing with liquid plastic, and the fumes are actually a little bit heavier in terms of that because you've got a pool of liquid plastic sitting there, and the fumes out of that is just constant, right? Whereas opposed to plastic that's already cured in a spool, okay, and then you're just getting that fumes from the melted head from the printer itself. And the other thing I don't like about resin printer is that there's a lot of mess because you're dealing with liquid. You have to wear gloves. You have to have a really well ventilated area, that kind of thing. Now, that said, the advantages of a resin printer over an FDM printer. So this is probably the most important element of a 3D printer. The difference between an FDM printer and a resin printer. It really depends on what you're going to be doing. If you're a person who's going to be printing very fine, small figurines, something that requires the best detail, the smoothest detail on your print, then you want to go with a resin printer, okay? Just because of the method it prints, and I'll explain why. If you use an FDM printer, it's more designed for larger objects, nothing that requires super, you can do it, but you have to kind of tweak it a little bit, and you have to use some different hardware with it. Meaning you have to use it because the FDM printer uses a print head. Okay, so the print head is different sizes in terms of millimeters. So standard FDM printer comes factory from the store is 0.3 millimeter print heads. That's nice, but that's the I guess the average print head that I would use for any kind of print. It's kind of an in between. The problem with that is for most of my use, and I do large objects that doesn't require that kind of very fine detail, I use a 0.6 nozzle. Okay. Why do I use a 0.6 and what's the difference between 0.6 and a 0.3? The smaller the print nozzle, the more fine your print's going to be, the more detailed it's going to be, the smoother it's going to be. It's still not going to compete with resin printer just because it's using liquid printer and molding from liquid. Whereas FDM, you're printing line at a time, right? It doesn't matter how fine it is, you're going to see some sort of banding on your print, okay? Because it's doing it line at a time. Now, that said, you can tweak your machine, your FDM printer with a smaller print head, like a finer print head, and you can use different features in the software to create a smoother output or smoother layer of skin on the outside of that print. I've done it, and I'll show you later on what you can do with it. You can achieve it, but it's only limited to certain types of print. You can't do it with every print. So you're limited to what you can do in that respect. Whereas a resin printer will always come out nice and smooth when it's printed, right? There are limitations for both printers. There are pros and cons for both printers. So if you're the person who's going to be doing, like, for instance, my son does a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. He does the Warhammer figurines, those figurines. If you're doing those, I can do it on my printer, but it's not as detailed, it's not as smooth. When you're doing stuff like that, you want a resin printer. So if that's all you do, then a resin printer would be great for it. If you're doing things like I do, like big figures, I do accessories, I do repairs around a house and stuff like that, resin printer is not a good alternative for that kind of thing, just because first of all it's slow, second of all it's messy, third of all I'm limited to the size of the machine, and most of all they're expensive, and I'm cheap, right? I'd rather go with 2 FDM printers. Now with the FDM printers, because you're doing a line at a time, and the different nozzles will determine your detail, okay? But that also is a sacrifice. So just think of that. The smaller nozzle head that you use, the longer it's going to take for you to print an object. That's why I use a 0.6, because for me 0.6 will do 95% of everything I need to do, but faster. and you'd be amazed at how much faster. If you take a 0.3 nozzle and a 0.6 nozzle, and you do a print on the 2, the 0.6 will do it double the time, more than double the time, right? Have to be, if you're getting into 3D printing, you have to be very patient, guys. You know, it's not like a inkjet printer. You can't print something out quickly. Like, you're talking hours to print something small, like a figurine that I print. For instance, I did these stands for the X4, like these stands right here. Like, it looks pretty simple, right? And I designed this, and this takes an hour and a half to print, you know, for something small like this. And there's nothing to this. It's even an empty shell in the center. It's just an outline, right? My longest print time was probably, I think, 14 hours on one piece of object. I've built, and I'll show you all the things that I've built, all the models and stuff that I've built, and I'll give you kind of a time factor of how long it took me to do this. And then there's post, right? You have to go back, for example, with FDM printers, I can do helmets, you know, like what do you call it, cosplay helmets and stuff like that. And I've done a couple, 3 actually, and that's printing in pieces and then putting it together to build this helmet. Very hard to do on a resin, if it's even possible to do it on a resin printer. Very, very hard to do. The helmets that I've built are like, you can actually fit over your head. They're that big. Now I'll show you some stuff, and you'll see what you can do with an FDM printer. It is cheaper, FDM. Filaments, the plastic used to print on FDM is cheaper, less messy. Okay, you can find deals on Amazon. Typically, you pay about, Canadian wise, you'll pay anywhere from deals I've seen for like $18 a roll. They go by 1 kilogram, which is 2.2 pounds. And they last quite a long time. I've been through hundreds of rolls since I've got my printer, and I do a lot of stuff on this. I have an Etsy store that I do some design work and I sell. So, that said, that's the difference between the two. If you guys have any questions between the two, and if you're not sure, if you're kind of borderline wondering what you should use, what you want to get for what you're doing, just ask, and I can give you a better idea of what printer you should go with. And I'll go through little details of filaments, what to use, different types of plastic, and some tricks and tips for your first machine. Because when you buy these machines, they're very basic. There's really nothing to these machines. I know every part of these machines. I can repair every part of this machine of 3D printer, FDMs, anyways. Resins, yeah, no, I don't know, because it's UV light, right? So it's harder to repair those. But yeah, I could fix the stepping motors. I can fix the extruders. I can fix like I fix fans. The circuit board is tiny. I've replaced circuit boards. I've fixed circuit boards. I fixed the displays on them, repaired displays on them, things like that, right? So they're much easier to repair. And there's different styles, and I'll go through those as well. But yeah, that's it. I'm going to cut it short. So this segment is to tell you what the differences between two printers are, and hopefully I'll give you an idea of what you're looking for. Like I said, I hope I explained everything well enough in layman terms. If you're still a little bit confused in terms of the two printers, just drop me a question in my description. I'll answer them as quick as I can, guys. But yeah, I think this will be good because I've had a lot of requests of people asking me about 3D printers, and they want to get into it. And I've had people who want me to design stuff for them, and I have. But it's a great way to get into something. It's not for the lighthearted. You do have to learn software. You do have to learn how to design. You have to learn how to slice the object to make it print ready. There's a lot more to this. It's not just about picking the right printer and the right plastic to use, and then just printing. And I'm going to show you some tips. I'm going to show you some sites that you can use to jump on and get free prints. Sometimes you don't even have the design, or somebody's already done the design and you just download it for free, or you can buy it for a cheap price, the design, send it to your printer, and it'll just print it right up on whatever color you want, right? So things like that, I'll go through with you. It's going to be a long process, guys. And like I said, it took me 3 years to learn, so hopefully it won't take me 3 years to do these videos. But anyways, hope you enjoyed the segment. I like to get into this more often. I love 3D printing. So, it's great to think of something. I've done so much custom stuff that you can't buy in stores that I do for myself, whether it's for diving, for my bike, for hunting, for my camera equipment, stuff like that. I've designed stuff you can't buy. right? And I sell some of the stuff, right? So you can make it into a business if you want. If you have the idea, you have the skills, you can do anything you want and sell it and make some good money, side hustle, if you want to call it that, right? But definitely, guys, I'm here to help. And if you have any questions, just let me know, and I'll answer them as quick as I can. Have a good one. We'll talk to you next, and I'll try and do another segment, hopefully in the next couple days for you. Okay? Ciao. Respect.